right, everybody. Um, Thanks for joining. So today we are going to learn some of the AWS topics. That is exactly you can see on my screen. We'll try to touch upon all of the important services like EC2 from the compute stack. Under the database, we are going to discuss RDS, Relational Database Service, and of course, storage, which is S3, simple storage service. Okay. So this is only for the 60 minutes, okay, 1 hour or so. So in the 60 minutes, all of the services, covering all of the services pretty difficult because these are all very vast topic. But yes, after the 60 minutes, at least you will get to know, have some of the understanding what is AWS all about, how you can position AWS for your business, for your customer, or for your own learning, and how can you set up and configure all of these, important services like EC2 database and storage, right? So before we get into discussions, all of the detailed discussions about the compute database storage, we'll see how to set up and configurations. First, we need to understand what is AWS, a little bit of history, right? About the cloud computing, why the cloud computing is so popular these days, etc., etc. So my name is Devajit, and I'm the instructor for this entire AWS basic training. Okay. And once we are done this training, I will share the recording with you so that you can refer at the same time. Okay. So let me minimize this particular PDF right now. This is basically a course curriculum. And let's start with about AWS. If you see my screen, aws.amazon.com, the screen I'm positioning for the AWS website, basically. So about AWS, we'll talk about when AWS incorporated and a little bit about history. Okay. So back in 2006, you can see AWS officially launched, right? So AWS full form is Amazon Web Service, correct? And it's the Amazon company. So all we know, Amazon is a giant e-commerce business, correct? There are many products available in Amazon. People usually they buy online, correct? So Amazon Web Service is a part of Amazon. It's a cloud computing company. As I'm trying to show you, 2006 officially launched. So there's a history behind that. So Amazon is a giant company, everybody knows, and there are so many servers, data centers, huge data centers. They have many storages, etc. But their leadership team back in 2006, they realized all of those servers, storage, and networking are not being used fully. Okay, many of them are not being used and a kind of ideal state. So they decided, what if we can position for those unused stuff, right? Unused server storage to public, so they can come, they can use those those services, and they can pay as you go model, correct? That means they only need to pay how many hours or minutes they will use. And I can tell you that is the completely paradigm shift in the IT industry, right? Earlier, what happened, like a small company, even the startups, they couldn't afford to have their own data center. Isn't so, right? Because building a data center is hugely expensive, correct? So going with this approach, people can use servers, storages, right? For a few minutes, few hours, few days, and they only need to pay for that. And after that, once they are done, they simply discard or terminate, and then they can stop paying, right? It's a kind of a subscriptions-based model, right? So back in 2006, AWS launched 3 services. Those are debatable topic, though. I mean, still some of people, they think, no, those are not the first 3 services, but very popularly or well-known accepted 3 services are EC2, SQS, and S3. Okay. And now, after so many years, everything is history. I can tell you, Amazon Web Service is world largest cloud computing service provider, right? They are the pioneer in this whole industry from the cloud computing space. And today they are standing almost 50% market share from the cloud computing space. Yes, after that, there's a Microsoft is a close competitor of AWS, and there's a GCP, Google Cloud provider also. They are the competitor. Nonetheless, this is the little theory part of that, to give you some of the understanding what is AWS and all. So now let me take you to some of the little presentations, and then we'll jump into the configuration and setup, right? So when you ask these questions to many students, okay, typically when I ask these questions, what is the cloud? Many students, they have a different thought process. Their answer was quite interesting, different answers. But majorly they say cloud is nothing like it's a space where I can upload my stuff, okay, over the internet. And I really agree this statement because cloud, yes, it is a space, right? All you need to upload your documents, your contents, okay, and you can access those over the internet, as simple as that. However, if you just go through this line, so basically this line talks about if you go to cloud computing, okay, you may stop thinking about the infrastructure and as a hardware. So what does it mean, right? So let's say there's a no cloud. Back in maybe 20 years back, there's a no concept of the cloud. Everything was a kind of hardware, right? Big company, they used to use big servers like IBM, Dell, all of these sophisticated, complex, expensive hardware, right? And they use those servers, those storages, networking over the LAN network or WAN, right? But the moment you choose cloud, you cannot touch and feel, okay, any hardware. It is all about the subscriptions, a kind of service model, right? And you really don't need to think about the availability, scalability, all the stuff. Okay, let me show you. Let me give you some of the understanding what exactly I mean here. If I bring up my whiteboard quickly, so let me draw something. Let's say this is the circle. I give it a name, load balancer. I'll explain what is all about the load balancer, etc. What is the purpose of that? And behind that, let me draw two rectangles. Let's assume these are my servers, okay? In AWS, they call EC2, by the way, but these are virtual machines. So now let's assume this is an architecture of AWS or Amazon.com, okay? Amazon.com. And Amazon.com, they have got their many customers, subscribers, whatever you can say. On a typical day, okay, let's say there are, hypothetically, maybe 100,000 of loads are coming to Amazon.com website, okay, and the load balancer will route those traffic to those underlying EC2 servers, okay. So that means if I try to connect Amazon.com, my request will go to load balancer, and load balancer will send the traffic to the servers, right? It happens all the time. So let's say, again, another user would like to access Amazon.com, then their request will go to the same load balancer. Again, it is going to either of the servers, correct? That's fine. So let's assume those servers, they have their own capacity, right? Let's say this server, they have 8 virtual CPU, 16 GB RAM, hypothetically again. And then both of the servers. Now, on a regular day, if there are so many requests are coming to those servers, servers, they don't have any problem. They say, okay, absolutely fine, fantastic. But if there are more than loads, let's say on the Black Friday or some of the occasions, auspicious occasions back in India, usually in the Diwali and some of the occasions. What happened? There are maybe in the Christmas also. Okay, there are so many additional loads will come to the load balancer, right? So it's unusual way, huge loads. Let's say there are millions of traffic hitting, continuously to the load balance. So after some time, those servers will be exhausted or overwhelmed. It says, okay, I am designed to take certain loads, Mr. Load Balancer, but you are sending me so many load balancer, right? So many loads, correct? And after some time, those servers will die down, whatever, right? So if those servers will down, what happens that you see 404 error or 500 error, all of the bad things happen, right? Your subscriber, they will see the site is not available, something bad, correct? So this is how it works if you go out with the normal traditional data center, private cloud. Okay, but in AWS has come up with a brilliant idea. They have said, no problem, we have got another service called auto scaling group. ASG stands for auto scaling group. It says, even though if you have so many loads are coming, irrespective of what numbers, okay, millions, billions, no problem. Automatically, this auto scaling group will increase additional servers for you, all automatic, okay? And what will happen the moment the servers will come up, then load balancer will start sending those traffic, all of the additional traffics. You remember, I told you there's a additional traffic now on the Black Friday or maybe Christmas. Those loads will go to all other servers. It's kind of evenly spread across all of the servers. So now earlier stage when those EC2 server was they are overwhelmed, exhausted. Now they're happy because all of the other loads are getting transferred or shared across all of the servers. So I can tell you that is the biggest advantages of using cloud computing. If those are not there, probably it wouldn't, whatever you can see right now about the cloud computing. This is the most important thing. If that's the missing, then there's no cloud, right? So now let's think about in a little different way. Okay, let's say once everything is normal, become normal, and all of the additional, sorry, this one, let me draw once again. Okay, so let's say those additional loads are not here. Okay, back to normal day. So when it comes to normal day, then do you think that those additional servers are needed? No, right? Because those two servers are perfectly fine to take those loads, the normal day loads, right? So that if you have those servers, then you are paying the amount unnecessarily. I mean, you don't need to pay all of the servers, cost, right? So this is a waste of money. So what autoscaling will do, even though in the normal day, if you don't need so many additional servers, it will say, okay, no problem. I can see now everything back to normal. So I can delete all of the additional servers for you, Mr. Load Balancer. And here you go. And this is the normal day, normal architecture. And now you can send traffic to only the EC2. So this is something called scalability. What is that? Scalability or elasticity. Okay, we'll have a detailed discussions once you are, will enroll the full course. Okay, and because in next 1 hour, so many things are waiting for us, so that it will be difficult for you. So this is the important thing you need to understand, the scalability part, right? Let's move on. Now, if I back to the presentations, little make it little presentation mode. Yeah. So now, a quick comparison between the on-premises and the cloud. Okay, So it's a traditional way of working. On my left hand side, you can see this is on-premise setup. So you have got a bunch of servers, storages, networking, databases, applications, etc. And you or your people, they are using over the corporate network, LAN, something like that. No problem. But the main issue is, here, the scalability, right? Exactly, we have learned a couple of minutes back. So you cannot scale overnight, can you? So let's say there are millions requests are coming to your applications overnight. Can your team increase all of the server, storage, network, infrastructure capacity? It's not humanly possible, right? So that is the main problem. And again, if you go ahead with the on-premises setup, everything you have to be liable for. You have to be responsible for everything. Like you have to manage your servers, their security, their patching, their maybe capex cost, electricity, all lot of things, AC, HVAC, right? So let's think from the practical way, correct? But on my right hand side, if you go with the cloud, then now you don't bother about all of the space, all of the servers. You only subscribe for 100 servers. You have to subscribe for maybe 1 petabyte of storage, who knows, database applications, and all you need to access them over the internet. Don't you think that is the big change, right? Because you are not responsible or liable for anything now. It is everything running on cloud. AWS people are managing for you. You just need to use your stuff over the internet, and that's it. Again, there's so many discussions there, but in interest of time, I quickly move on, and we'll show you this is a very important thing, and then we'll go to EC2 and start showing all of the configurations. Okay. Now it is this slide talks about, it's a little busy slide, a lot of words, a lot of icons, but I'm just trying to make you easier for you. It's a global infrastructure, and global infrastructure means you can see there are data centers, availability zones, region, etc., etc., right? So I'm just going to highlight some of the important areas so that we can start discussions on those. So region, what do you think about the region? Okay, it's the recording sessions. Okay, I don't have any students right now to answer, but I can answer also. So the region means, as simple as that, is a AWS global presence. What's that? It's a global presence. That means AWS does have their data centers in across different countries and cities in the globe, right? Like in UK, in US, in Asia Pacific, right? They have got many data centers, so they call it region. Okay, it's kind of logical stuff. Now you can see under region there's a availability zones there, right? Or short form AZ or AZ, right? So AZ or AZ is nothing like, it's kind of data centers. Okay, one or many data centers. You can see inside region the data center stays. Inside the region those data centers stay. Correct? And all of those data centers are connected each other as a high availability. For an example, let's say some of the natural calamity comes, some of the bad things happens to the particular region. Then other regions are there to take the failover, right? So that is the most important for any enterprise customer, for any customer these days, right? The high availability. If something goes wrong, then what about my applications availability? What about my database availability? Correct? Yes or no? So this is the design by nature. AWS has come up, different AZ, multiple AZ in one region to take a kind of failover, right? So now enough talking on from the theory perspective. Now let me go to the AWS Management Console. So what is that, right? What is AWS Management Console? So AWS Management Console is a portal. You can see anything you can do related to AWS, you may use this AWS management console, like to create the server, to create the database, to create storage, to create AI/ML stuff, analytics, just name it. So this is AWS management console, correct? And if I just go to these sections, you see all of the regions are listed here. Okay, as I said, like North Virginia, Ohio, North Carolina. So there are many, right? So you can see there's a category like under United States, so many regions, under Asia Pacific, so many regions, Canada, Europe, so on and so forth. So now I'm from India, so I could use Mumbai, okay? Uh, so that I just selected Mumbai, and it will take me to the Mumbai region altogether. Okay, all of the services you can see here. So now, first we need to understand the EC2, right? As per our curriculum. So EC2, the full name is Elastic Compute Cloud. What is that? Elastic Compute Cloud. This is the virtual machines. Okay, nothing else. It's a virtual machines, but the name is little interesting that AWS made for us. So when I click the EC2, there are so many things you see. Yes, in 60 minutes, it's not possible to show you, but at least you can see how you can create a launch a server, a virtual machines. Okay. So if you click on the instance, on the right hand side, you can see there's an option called launch instance. Okay, pretty straightforward to launch and self-explanatory. I'll just show you. If you just click on launch instance, it will give you some of the options, some of the fields to fill up. Let me just give it a name like demo. However, that demo, it's okay. And if I scroll down slowly, you see there are different types of operating systems. Okay, without operating systems, there's no point of using server, right? You have to have operating systems. So Amazon Linux, Mac, Ubuntu, Windows, there are different operating systems are there. So let me go to a first Windows server. Okay, you can also launch Linux. So if I go to Windows, just select the Windows operating systems. This is the name of the operating systems. And if you scroll down, you'll be able to see there are different types of instance. Okay, different types means different varieties, right? Now, how much CPU, how much RAM, how much storages, etc., etc. So let me select any of the instance type. Let's say 2 virtual CPU, 8 GB RAM. It's okay for me. And now it is telling me, okay, you have to create the key pair as well. So maybe you are thinking, now tell me, Debojit, what is the key pair? Correct. Key pair is nothing but it is a kind of certificate you have to create because AWS is very, very secure. So without certificate, you cannot log into the server. Okay. So without key pair, you cannot log into the server. As simple as that, plain English. Okay. I'll show you how to generate the password though. So in this key pair, let me create a key new pair. Give it a name like demo server something. But in reality, you have to give a better name, right? It's not demo server something production, CRM, or maybe ERP, SAP, whatever. So now let me create a key pair, and it got downloaded to my system right now. Now slowly, if I scroll down, you see there are more options related to networking now this time. And I can tell you networking is super duper important in AWS, even any cloud for that matter. I'm not saying that you need to become the ninja to understand the network, but some of the prior knowledge is very important, like what is LAN, what is WAN, something like that. If you don't know, it's okay, leave it to me, I'll make you understand. But here at this point, you have to define a proper network. You may say a kind of LAN sort of, okay? So BG demo, it's my VPC. And in the subnet, there are long story on the subnet though. At this stage, from the simplicity sake. It is just for the simplicity sake. It is just like a kind of public accessible VLAN. Okay. So in the networking, there are different types of subnetting, LAN, virtual LAN, right? So this is sort of the public subnet, so that if I can launch the EC2 on the public subnet, here you go, then you can access that particular server over the internet. Okay. Now, you also need to enable a public IP addresses. Okay, very important, because the public IP, without that, you cannot access the server. And of course, the security group. Security group is nothing, is a firewall. Okay. Hope you know what is firewall. Firewall is a service or device by which you can restrict certain port, certain protocol, okay, so that all of the traffic you can block as per your requirement. But at this stage, I can choose my existing firewall that I've already created for other batch in interest of time. So I simply can go and choose my firewall, which is BG, something like that. No. This section talks about the storages. So yeah, the storages, you may change the storages. Let's say 30 GB right now by default, but you can upload, sorry, you can, define whatever you need, right? Maybe 1 TB, 2 TB, 16 TB, whatever. So let me launch the instance right now, and you can see how fast a server can be launched. Okay, that means in your real, let's say, if you think from the on-premise perspective, you don't have any cloud, getting a server up and running, don't you think is too much headache, right? Let's think about from this way. If you like to launch a server or deploy a server, first you need to place an order for a server. You have to choose the proper specifications like HP, Dell, IBM. Then you have to pay for that, right? It is not in India, I can tell you, is almost 5 lakhs rupees for an entry level server. In US, UK, you can relate with these converts. You can convert them, and then when it will come to you in your data center, then you have to connect the server to a proper network rack, right? Proper networking, you have to install whole bunch of applications, you have to do a hardening, patching properly. So from my experience, even for a server, from the day one to delivery to get the server up and ready, it will take easily a month time, believe me. But now you can see a server, it is now almost running. It is now in the initializing stage. And after a few minutes, those server will up and running, and I will log in this server. Okay. So I'll take a pause for a few minutes because it will take 3-4 minutes. So in interest of time, you know, I'll pause now and we'll come back. Thank you. So all right, I'm back. So it took 2-3 minutes actually to launch the entire server. So now you can see my server is up and running. Now we have to log in the server, right? So how to do that? Very easy. You see there's an option called connect. Click on that. And then go to the RDP client, because this is the Windows server, right? So for Windows, you need to have a RDP. So here you see there's an option called get password. If I just click on that, you remember, I created key pair. You remember? Then I told you that key pair is nothing but the certificate. So now we need that key pair to generate the password. As simple as that. So I need to upload the key pair from my download folder, and then I have to decrypt the password so that AWS gives me a very easy password. Just jokes apart, it's not easy, right? It is very complex. At least I cannot remember. If you can describe, you can change the password later point of time. Anyway, so let me copy this password, and then I will download the remote desktop file. This is the software to connect the Windows server. And then once this software will get downloaded, I'll simply launch or click on those particular file and paste the password, this password actually, and continue. So once I'm done, now it is trying me to log into the server, and you see there's a black screen for me. Now it's a, it is getting prepared, the server desktop. And after a few seconds, few minutes, you'll be able to see the Windows desktop screen. Yeah, still going on some of the processes, background processes of Windows Server. Yes, usually it takes some time. Yeah, and here you go. And this is the brand new Windows Server you just created within 5 minutes, and you can do whatever you can do with the server. So that is the speed of cloud. And once you are done with this, you can simply go and delete the server. Okay. Now, if I go back to loading instances, and let's say I don't need that, I simply go and stop, or you can terminate the instances. Just remember, if you stop the instances, then you don't need to pay for that. Okay. If you terminate, you also don't need to pay for that. But if you stop, then you only need to pay for the storages which is attached. Okay. AWS will not charge you for the instances if you turn it off, but whatever the storage you use, so you have to pay continuously, monthly basis to AWS. The long you use this storage. Okay. But what I'm going to do now, let me delete this server now, because I really don't need this server at this stage. So go and terminate this server. So that's about EC2. And if time permits, I will come back and I'll show you some of the additional thing like volumes, which is block storages, and all stuff. But now we can go to the next topic, which is database and then S3. Okay. All right. So now here you can see there's a search options, search area. You simply type RDS. Okay. So RDS stands for Relational Database Service. So this RDS, if you are from the database background, if you have any understanding of the database, there are two types of database in the world, very popular. One is relational database and other is non-relational database, correct? So typically the relational database, we call it OLTP. This is a very technical name though. And the non-relational database, somebody called it a NoSQL, okay? There's another database, which is OLAP, OLAP. This can be used for analytics, okay? So AWS provides you all sort of different databases for different needs. So I'm from the database background. So I can tell you one thing, if you start using AWS databases, I mean the managed databases, right? Your life will be so easy, from at least from the database administrator perspective. Okay. So a lot of things AWS will do for you, like auto backup, automatic patching, high availability, disaster recovery, etc., etc. But today, again, in interest of time, we'll only see some of the relevant database features and functions. And before we'll get into this database configuration and setup, something very interesting thing I'm trying to show you now using my same whiteboard. So let me delete this. So let's say this is your EC2 and you have installed an application inside that. Okay, let's say this kind of Java applications or PHP applications, whatever it is, okay, something .NET applications. And traditionally what we do, that we can have the database, correct? So there are two ways to deploy database. Okay, one is you can deploy on the plain vanilla EC2, right? If you know SQL Server. what you can do that you can launch an EC2, and inside that you can, deploy an a SQL server, no problem. But if you do that, there's a lot of, as I said, lot of manageability things you can do, a lot of management stuff you have to do, operational stuff, right? You have to do a proper backup, failover, a good patching, security, etc., etc. So that is a problem. So that's why if you use the RDS managed database, so it's pretty easy for you to deploy and manage. So let me show you. So let's say this is my EC2 applications, right? It is communicating to my RDS instance, RDS server database. So, and those RDS can be managed by AWS team. You really don't need to do anything for that. Now, the good part of using RDS, like you can create another RDS, okay? And this RDS are kind of for the high availability, okay? So let's assume this is my primary database and this is my secondary. Say, so in those case, okay, the primary and secondary, you could create, I mean, it is automatic way, a kind of virtual IP. In AWS, they say endpoint. What is that? Endpoint, common endpoint. So now your application or EC2 actually communicates with this endpoint, not the individual server. Just think, okay? Just relax, think. Why AWS has come up with these thoughts? Okay. Still, I cannot hear you because it's a recording. So to answer this query, in case this primary goes down, so this endpoint will automatically transfer the load to the secondary, and secondary will become the primary. So that is the perfect example of the high availability, right? Because for your application, the application doesn't care, which nodes is running. It is only connecting to a common endpoint, and endpoint will route the traffic in case your primary goes down. Okay, so everything is automated, and the replications between the primary and secondary also automated way that we call a replication or synchronizations. So if you update something on your primary databases, right? You say some of the insert into or some of the update queries, those changes will automatically take place on your secondary server, okay? So that all of the data is identical. There's no data inconsistency. You understand? So for your application, the application doesn't know even that your primary or secondary running. It only knows that, okay, this is my database. Okay. So at any point of time, if this particular database goes down, then your secondary will become primary and it will take the load. So that is one of the main advantages of using RDS or managed database. Okay. Another interesting thing I'll discuss, and then we'll go back and we'll show you some of the configurations. So let's say for many applications, okay, for an example, let's say kind of student admissions or student portal. Okay. So during the admission time, so there are many students, they fill up the form, right? Admission form, correct? So from the database perspective, these are all insert into query. That means those will all go to your writer. Okay, this is your writer instances, right? But let's say, assume at the time of result, okay, result out, okay. So the colleges or schools, they usually publish their results on the website. So that point of time, each and every students, they want to see their result. It is now not a select into. This is now the select query. It's a read query. You understand? So what AWS said that if you have only one database, writer and reader, same database, single database, then write and read and write and read it is a continuously hammering on your databases. So your database will be very, very busy, and after some time, it might be a database performance problem, right? So that is the reason these days, many enterprise customers or any customers, if they have this kind of query pattern, okay, the access pattern, right, read and write heavy. So in AWS, they can create the another database called reader. What's that? Reader. So in your application class, let's say you are using some C, .NET or Java, whatever the application, in the class, all you need to define that all of my select queries can go to the reader, okay? And all of my write query can go to my writer. So now you have segregated the entire load to different databases. How amazing is this, right? And even though if you write something, if you update something, those data will be also synchronized with this reader. Those data will also synchronize with this reader. That means if you update something, those data definitely is here. And now if students say, okay, select star from where this table, where, ID number ID equals to what, those kind of very, vanilla query, if they will do, then their query, their path will go to reader, it will not go to writer. You understand? So now the entire load will get distributed and your database performance will be fantastically fine, and your performance of application will be fantastically fine. Very nice. So this is the well architected framework, I should say, from the database perspective. Make sense? Let me go to the databases RDS and quickly show you how can you do that. If you go and create databases, you see there are lot of different options, right? Lot of database engines, Aurora, MySQL, PostgreSQL, Oracle. So again, in interest of time, I cannot, explain all of this. But let's assume that I can go ahead with this PostgreSQL database engine, right? And this is the PostgreSQL versions. Now, this is the concept of multi-AZ DB cluster. Multi-AZ, very important. So multi-AZ means, if I go back to the architecture, that means this primary can stay in one data center, this secondary can stay in different data center. And you think, why should I do? Yes, if my one data center goes down, then my secondary data center AZ, you remember AZ, that particular data center will still remain there, will still there, so that automatically the failover will be there as a high availability options, right? So it's always a good practice that you have to deploy or choose the multi-AZ, okay, DB cluster or multi-AZ DB instances, so that your database will be in the good shape from the high availability perspective. So it is costly, yes. So for me, I can choose a single DB instance now. But in your real productions environment, you have to select the multi-ACDB instances. Okay. Now, if you scroll down, you just give a nice name like my prod CRM something, right? Prod CRM database, and this all type of username, you can give it your username as per your choice. And now, if you scroll down, you see there's a instance class. Instance class is nothing, but this is the different types of varieties of the server. Same thing like EC2, right? How big or how small server you would like to go for. Let me choose this DBM5 large. And under the storage, you have to also choose what sort of hard drive or storage you should have for your workload, okay? Storage plays a significant role in database if you have the database background, right? And the performance of storage plays a key role, in database. Nonetheless, so in the storage type, I have just chosen these SSD GP3, and if I scroll all the way down, the same song and dance like the VPC, you have to choose a proper VPC, right? You have to choose a subnet, tell me one thing. Do you think that database should be in the public subnet or private subnet? Think. If you think this is the private subnet, then you are correct. Why? Because you must not expose your database to the world because it's very confidential, right? For your company, this is something most confidential thing, right? Probably you can keep all of your customers' data. Maybe the PII data is also there. Who knows, right? So it must be in the isolated network, a subnet that we call in private subnet. But yes, that's why AWS also recommends that you should go by the no public access. Then yes, the same kind of firewall you have to choose. You have to choose the availability zones, etc., etc. And then in these sections, you see some of the monitoring, and then if you just enable that, you have a more granular visibility from the monitoring perspective, because all you know from the database background, so database needs a lot of additional monitoring, right? Maybe you want to see some of the buffer cache, maybe your CPU percentages, utilizations, maybe deadlocks, who knows, right? Some of the different maybe some of the different swap issue, memory swap issue. So anything. So now I'm going to create a database. And if I just now create it, you see that database is getting created. So again, it will take little longer time than EC2 because so many things are there. So what I'll do that I will take a pause and I'll come back once it is ready. Yes, it's still taking much longer time because this is the database. So what you can do, we can explain, or we can, go to another topics or the same topics in the different areas. So when I say different areas means, let me show you something, okay? So this is the broad CRM database, right? We have just created. If you just click on that, it will take you to a complete different areas, different descriptions, different page, different sections. And this is a very important thing for you, like endpoint. So you remember, I told you the endpoint, which is common endpoint. So your application should communicate with this endpoint, right? So that means in your application class, you have to define this endpoint and definitely the database user ID and password, correct? So in traditional way, what we do, if you are not using any cloud, so we usually declare, the server name, user ID, and password. But now instead of the user ID, you should use the endpoint. Uh, and now if I go to the different tabs, slowly, like monitoring. So here you go about all of the monitorings for the databases, right? Your CPU utilizations, database connections, right? DB load, etc. And logs will give you a solid understanding about your database logs, some of the error logs, because all you know that the logs will be a good buddy, right, for us to troubleshoot, correct? So these logs will give you a solid insights. um, Similarly, if you go to configurations, it will give you a kind of snapshot of your database configurations, like, whether are you using some multi-AZ, which is no in our case, what is the configurations, what is the, storages, capacity, etc., etc., and all of the other detailed informations. So now, if I go to actions, right, you see many of the actions are grayed out, right? I mean, those are the options are grayed out under the actions menu. But you can see there's an option called read replica. So this is something I just wanted to emphasize that point of time, that when you have to create the replica, so replica is nothing that this is the reader instances, okay? So if you need the read replica, all you need to do that you have to create, and you can create the read replica. So I can tell you this read replica, which is very, very important. Many times I've seen in my throughout my career, it can save your life in terms of the database performance. Okay, so on your left hand side, you see there's an option called Performance Insight. So Performance Insight is an additional tool so that you'll have a granular view of different what should I say, in-depth database monitoring. How much what are those top SQL which will consume your enter database performance or capacity. So maybe this one. Um, which are those weights, what are the weights which will probably impact your database performance. So these are all DBA things. And now if I go back to the earlier stage, you see there are other options like the snapshot. The snapshot I can explain very quickly. Snapshot is nothing but this is the database backup, okay, in AWS. So you can do the backup operations manually or automatically. So if you would like to go for the manually, all you need to take the snapshot. And if you'd like to do automatic way, then this automated backup will be on, and then automatically on a particular time, AWS will take a backup for you. Okay, so that's about the databases. Now you can see now my database is also available. Our database is available. So if I just go there, okay, I've logged out. Let me re-log in. Basically, the session timeout. So after some time, you know, you may logged off from this console. So if I can re-log in and go to the same directions like RDS, and here it go in the, if I click on the database and select the database, go to action, and now you can see all of the earlier grayed out functions. Now they are alive. Okay, so you can create, read replica, you can delete, reboot, and all stuff. You can convert to multi-AZ because our is not multi-AZ, right? It is the single AZ. Now you can also convert. So this is something very recently AWS has introduced a zero ETL integrations. I mean, I will take only 1 minute for that. So zero ETL integration means now you can integrate ETL process with AWS Analytics Engine. Okay, let's say you want to do a kind of extract, transform, and loading. Okay, so automatically out of the box, you really don't need to do anything. You only define your database on your source side, which is the database side, and on your target side, which is database analytics, maybe AWS Analytics Engine like Redshift. You just define their database. All of the ETL can be converted. All of the processes can be automated, and then out of the box, it will work. Very nice feature. You can also explore yourself. If you have any queries, just let me know. So I think that's all about the basic understanding perspective for the database RDS. Proxy is also there. Proxy is nothing like, again, I can take 2 minutes. Let's say your application generates a lots of traffic, right? It usually happens like application builds a lots of sessions between, your database and applications. So if you enable the proxy, it's an intelligent service. It will understand what are these sessions can be reused. Okay, some kind of PG bouncer. If you have ever heard about the PG bouncer, something, it's kind of connections pooling mechanism, connections pooling service. Okay, so these RDS proxy can be a great candidate for those kind of use cases where you have huge application sessions and you really need to do some kind of automated way. All right, so that's all about EC2 and RDS, and I think I have very few minutes left. Let me go to S3 now. And I think many people, even they don't know about AWS, they have heard the term of S3. Okay, this very popular guy. Okay. So S3 stands for Simple Storage Service, 3S. That's why S3. Okay. S3 is nothing, just a kind of alternative service of Google Cloud. Sorry, not Google Cloud, Google Drive. Okay. So you know Google Drive, so that in Google Drive you can upload almost anything, correct? Anything in terms of PDF, your Word, maybe some of the HTML, JavaScript, is all of the objects, right? So S3 is a AWS object storage. Okay. You can literally upload anything on the S3. Okay, as an object storage, and the limit is almost unlimited. Okay. So some of the things about S3, I can draw something for you. Little advanced in the basic, okay, little different combinations. I'm just trying to tell you the very common use cases that you can leverage S3 for. Let's say this is your applications running on EC2, okay, and this is your database that also let's RDS. So what I've seen, many customer, like for Netflix, okay. So everybody knows what is Netflix, right? It's OTT platform running on AWS actually, for your knowledge. So if you think that the Netflix company, they will store all of their videos, on a particular storage, or storage device, which is EBS, right? Elastic block storage, then it could be not terabyte, it could be petabyte after petabyte, because there are so many videos, right? It will consume so much storages, right? And it will be hugely expensive. However, how Netflix could manage these solutions in the AWS, right? So let's say this is your EC2 server, and then inside that you have got a storage, correct? So now Netflix application, they will actually store all of their videos on the S3 bucket. S3 is a very, very cost-effective solutions, almost the cheapest in order to price, definitely, from the storage solutions. Okay. So all of their static assets, that means video, audio, whatever, right? They actually store in S3. Okay. And time to time they will pull. So none of the videos actually are storing on the local EBS, they are storing on the S3. Okay, that could be a very common use cases, and this could be another solution for your performance benefit. Okay, so further you can cache this S3 for with the CDN, etc., etc. I'm not getting into so deep right now, but so this is one of the use cases you can use S3 for, and apart from that, you can use S3 to just store your objects. That's it. So I'm going to do that. So if you go to create bucket options, okay, go and click on the create bucket options, and here you have to just define your bucket name, random, anything. Okay, don't put test or Dan, Bob, John, okay, because it will not accept. Okay, you have to give a very unique combinations of a bucket name, something like the email address. If you just type debajit@reademail.com, it will immediately say no, Debojit and Readmail has already been taken, something like that. So, so something like that. So the bucket name, you have to give a different name, and then if you scroll down all the way through here and simply create bucket. The moment you create bucket, the bucket got created. Okay. So these are all different bucket that I have created for different batches, different testing labs, etc. So let's assume that's my bucket, right? Just click on that, and here you can simply upload your documents. Okay, this is not my bucket today I've created, but anyways, you understand. So go to upload options and simply upload. Click on the add files or folder, and let's say I'm going to upload this RDP, tool exe, and upload, and you see upload has been completed. So that is the easiest way you can do that, or you can also use some of the third-party tool. Many developers, they ask, okay, from the development perspective, Debajit, it is not uploading is not a smart way, right? How do we do something like from my applications, it will call and it will upload. So AWS offers so many SDKs. If you just go to AWS SDK, you can install those SDK for your applications. Right now it's JavaScript, but you can go for AWS SDK for developers. And you see there are varieties of language that supports. So either of the SDK you can download, you can configure, and then from the SDK you can call the S3 API, and then you can do the uploading and downloading, whatever you can do. So that is how quickly you can upload, right? And then there are so many other options like properties, management, access points. One thing I can tell you that AWS, the moment you choose AWS, which AWS is very secure, okay? They don't compromise with the security. So that's why the moment you created S3, the default encryption is already there, okay? Which is a server-side encryptions, correct? You can change the encryptions though, as per your requirement. And now, if I go to the management sections, you can see some of the interesting management options there. One of the very important and my favorite, which is replications rules. So replication rules means it's a kind of disaster recovery solutions for your S3 bucket. Okay, that means let's say I have got the S3 bucket running on Mumbai. God forbid if something goes wrong in the entire Mumbai region, then what about my data? Okay, so if you enable the replication, what it will do that it will continuously replicate with some of the other regions S3. Okay, so whatever the data you will have on your target environment. Okay, that is a very nice options that you can set it up very easily. Just create a replications rule and give it a name like replications. But yes, for that you have to enable the versioning. How many of you know versioning? Okay, if you raise your hand, I cannot see. Yeah, the versioning is something like a GitHub, right? Or any kind of source code repository, right? If you enable the versioning, that means it will keep on tracking your versions, right? And anytime you can go back to a previous version and restore. That is a very plain English, quicker way I can explain, but this is exactly the same way S3 works. Okay, so for the versioning, you have to, just um, first enable the versioning, and then you have to choose the source and destinations buckets. My source bucket is anyways, that's one, which is source region. And now if you scroll down, all you need to choose the destinations bucket where your data will get, replicated. So I'm not going to do that, but it's a very quicker way you can do that because S3 itself takes 2-3 complete 2-hour sessions. Okay, so vast because this is one of the first services AWS launched, and over the period of time, it is getting so matured. So one thing is very important to know. Out of the box, S3 is restricted from public. Okay, that means if you create any bucket, okay, something like that, the bucket is not accessible from public internet from the security perspective. However, you can make it public because some of the customer they use S3 as a static website solutions. But at this stage, this is about the S3. And quickly, if I go back to my bucket and would like to show you something more. So if I'm here in this particular bucket and let me upload something, maybe this PEM file, upload. Now, the same file you may change here. Let's say if you just go and create actions, you can actually rename, this object name. Let's say this is my something like that, the different name. Or if you just go and actions, you can move to another S3 bucket, right? You can download, also you can see the size of that, all stuff, right? So, and in the permission sections, you can have a proper policy, bucket level policy. That's all we say. That means you can restrict the permission to somebody else. Let's say Devajit can use this bucket, but maybe Dan cannot see the bucket. Maybe Sherlock can see the bucket, all stuff. So that is something else. So today in 60 minutes, whatever we have learned, something like first we started with the region and the availability zone concept, little bit introduction that we did. Then under the compute sections, we touched upon the EC2. We have seen how to create the EC2. Under the databases, we have seen how to create the RDS, some of the interesting RDS options like read replica and multi-AZ. And at last, we have seen the storages, S3. And that's all from my side. If you have any questions, you can ping me or you may call me, and then I'll be happy to help you. Thank you. God bless you. Bye.